Well, welcome to the 700 Club, and thanks so much for joining with us. Well, President Trump said the war with Iran will end very soon. He also said that in 10 days of fighting, the U.S. military has achieved what it predicted would take a month.
At the same time, the president made it clear that the war won't end this week. Meanwhile, he strictly warned Iran not to bottle up the global oil supply. CBN correspondent Paul Petit reports from Israel.
Speaking to the press Monday, President Trump said the war in Iran is ahead of schedule and almost over.
Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon.
The president told Israeli news outlet Times of Israel that the final decision to end the war will be a mutual one between he and Prime Minister Netanyahu. As U.S. and Israeli forces continue to pound Iran on land and sea, the Strait of Hormuz has been frozen, causing oil prices to spike. In the U.S., gas prices are up 50 cents over the last week. The national average is $3.47 a gallon.
And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level.
Trump says he's unhappy with Iran's choice of Khamenei's son as their new supreme leader, and he's still not ruling out putting boots on the ground to force regime change for the Iranian people.
I'd love to help them, but they have to be in a system that allows them to be helped. And right now they're in a system that only allows failure. And I don't want that. And I want a system that's not going to be attacking us. We want a system that can lead to many years of peace. And if we can't have that, we might as well get it over with right now.
Iran continues to send drones at Israel and Arab nations, including 2 at Saudi Arabia and 6 at Kuwait today. All were shot down. The Jerusalem Post is reporting that Iran's attacks on other Gulf nations is improving Israeli relations with neighboring Arab countries. In Israel, people running for their lives after a barrage of 8 Iranian cluster bombs landed, mostly in the central part of the state, killing 2 people here Monday.
This is what a cluster bomb is designed to do. It literally rips through anything that it comes in contact with. What you're looking at are these holes in this metal sheeting here by this building, and it just blows it open. These are designed, these cluster bombs, to rip through metal, as you see, rip through vehicles, tanks in battle, and then obviously if you're a person, it could shred your body apart. And that's what happened here today.
And to give you an idea just how dangerous it is right now in much of Israel, we had to scramble to shelter in the middle of a CBN live shot.
We're using cluster bombs, and we're hearing, are those bombs going off right now? I don't know if you can hear the thud, but we're hearing something right. There's another one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys hear this.
Yep.
Yeah. We just took cover moments ago. You can see the people they're taking cover right here, the camera crews. But there's another one and another one. Here, get over here. Yeah, this is going on now. We got to take cover, guys.
With Monday's fatality here, it brings the civilian death toll in Israel to 12. Paul Petit, CBN News, Central Israel.
Well, Michael Oren, he's the former Israeli ambassador to the United States. He joins us now from Tel Aviv. Let's talk about this war. Is the president saying it's going to end soon? Is that the sort of prevailing view? It seems to me that there's a higher risk if we end it too early.
Well, good to be with you, Gordon, as always, in the 700 Club. Well, it's confusing. I do a lot of Israeli media, and everyone's asking the same question you are here. The president, on one hand, says that the fighting's going to end soon, and on the other hand, he says it's not going to end soon. So which is it? I think Israel's major concern is that the operation continues until the goals are achieved, and the goals were 3. One was that Iran would not be able to rebuild its nuclear program. 2, that Iran would not be able to manufacture tens of thousands of these missiles, which you just heard from Paul Petit. These missiles take down not just an apartment house, they take down a neighborhood. And now you have these cluster munitions that take down several neighborhoods. And thirdly, that Iran stops supporting terror throughout the region, throughout the world. And these terrorist organizations are determined to destroy us. So these are very serious goals. We cannot replace the government of Iran. Only the people of Iran can do that. And I think the United States and Israel both understand that. And they understand it's no small thing for the people of Iran to go out to the street because the regime will kill thousands of them, as they did last January. So we have these three goals, and I think that certainly the president, I'm not going to speak for the president, he would be willing to end the war if there was an Iranian leadership that says, okay, we're willing to give up the nuclear and the ballistic and the terror. But the new leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, seems to have no intention whatsoever of giving up anything.
Well, isn't the very government itself the weapon? I know it's important to focus on the nuclear capability, ballistic missile capability, but this has been a war that's literally gone on for 47 years, inspired by their ideology. They've used proxies, you know, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. They've done direct attacks, and they've done it repeatedly. And it seems like every time there's an attempt to sort of quell it, we're dealing with the symptoms and not with the real problem and the real disease, which is how they think. They think destroying Israel is the thing they're supposed to do. They think destroying America is the thing they're supposed to do. So as long as they're in power, they're going to use everything they can to achieve those ends. So isn't it a military objective to have regime change?
It would certainly be good if we can actually do that without putting boots on the ground. And the United States doesn't want to put boots on the ground. I don't think Israel does either. I think to put a finer point on your point, Gordon, is that not only is the destruction of the United States and Israel in their DNA, you can't change it, it's who they are, but also Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, they all have the same basic definition of what victory, what constitutes victory. They don't care how many of their people are killed. They don't care how many ships the U.S. Navy sinks or how many nuclear facilities are blown up. Their one goal is to survive. And if they can come out of this war and, you know, give the V sign, then they consider they've won. And how do you defeat an enemy like that? I think the model here is not Iraq and Afghanistan. And I certainly understand America's fear of these endless wars, what they call the forever wars. But the real model was like the Cold War, which took decades and resulted in a great victory for the United States because the United States kept up the pressure. And so maybe you don't have to keep bombing Iran every day. Certainly once we get rid of these rocket launchers, and we are knocking them out every day, you keep up the pressure through a very intense naval blockade. They don't get to export a single drop of oil. And you'll see how fast this regime may, you know, wither on the vine, and then maybe an opposition revolt can occur or a coup within the actual regime itself.
So you're hoping that when they can't afford to pay the Republican Guard, when they can't have those paychecks going out to the police, to the clerics, to the Republican Guard, that's when we'll see a change?
Yeah, but first they will not have any money to give to Hezbollah and Hamas. Because they, even during this last year, they transferred millions and millions of dollars to these terrorist organizations. At the time when their currency was worth nothing and they had no electricity and no water, that's how deeply embedded this in their DNA, in their existence, is this support for terror and the destruction of Israel and the United States. So we have to be able to deprive them of the means, the ability, not just to pay their soldiers, but to pay terrorists around the world.
Well, I'm afraid for the Iranian people. If this regime does not change, they've already said, just in the past few days, that if you leave your house, they're going to treat you like an Israeli soldier, that they will shoot you on sight. So if this war ends prematurely, how bad will this crackdown be?
Oh, it'll be terrible. Terrible. And we have nothing but friendship and historic friendship, as you know, going back to Darius and Cyrus for the Persian people, the connection between our two peoples. We want to go back to what it was in 1979. But I know I can talk about this probably only on the 700 Club, Gordon, is that we are facing a true evil. And for the people who believe in the existence of evil in the world and the way evil works in the world, here's an example. And it's very dismaying to us, to me personally, to see these leaders in the world, mostly in the West, who say, we recognize the evil, but we're not going to do anything about it. All right, we're only going to be on the defensive. And to see that there are people in the world who still are ready to stand up and recognize evil and to fight evil and know that evil has to be fought and defeated is a source of great comfort for me.
Well, I've been joking. There was a Cyrus decree, and now here we are 2,400 years later. There's a Trump Netanyahu decree going back into Persia to free the people. Let's talk about Lebanon. You know, the Hezbollah got weaponized and then started firing rockets again into northern Israel. Israel's forced to respond. And now the Lebanese government is saying Hezbollah has to leave, has to disarm. And to my absolute amazement, new leadership of Syria is joining in with that call. Is there hope that Hezbollah could be disarmed, that southern Lebanon would no longer be an armed camp aimed at Israel?
Isn't this amazing? It shows that there actually is progress in the Middle East. Who would have thought that someday Syria would close its borders to Iranian arms supplies to Hezbollah, that the Iranian government, this Lebanese government would come out and criticize Hezbollah for firing at Israel? That's amazing. Now, the Lebanese government does not have the power yet to overcome Hezbollah. Hezbollah was and remains one of the most powerful non-governmental militaries in the entire world, not just in the Middle East. And Lebanon doesn't have that power, but together with us, together with the Syrians, together with backing of the United States, we can make the Hezbollah, the Hezbollah grape wither on the vine too, and simply dry them out and create a situation where they can't get money, they can't get arms, and slowly they will begin to wither.
Let's look back to the Hamas invasion, October 7th. It's painful to look back, but at that time, here you had an army in southern Lebanon that rivaled some European powers. It was well armed, it was well funded, and clearly aimed at Israel. And then, Hamas, a horrible attack, and Iran with nuclear aspirations, ballistic missiles that they were capable of firing against Israel. All of these things happen. And now we're seeing the proxies, the Houthis have been quiet right now. We're not seeing anything. It seems like Iran has been severely weakened and Hezbollah is on the brink of extinction. Hamas is on the brink of distinction. So how did we get to this point? It seems like an incredible turnaround in a short space of time.
Well, I think there's no gainsaying the military accomplishments of the Israel Defense Forces. I think they'll be studying at them at West Point for 50 to 100 years. No army in the world has ever encountered what the IDF encountered just in Gaza. Not only were you fighting between 30 and 40,000 terrorists embedded in a population of 2.2 million, but you were fighting a battle above ground and below ground with something in the order of 250 to 300 miles of tunnels beneath Gaza. No army in history has ever encountered anything like that. And that was only one front in this war. But having said that, Hamas remains in power in half of Gaza. It's strong. Hezbollah is still a formidable military force, as we're finding out. We're having shelling there today, all day, from Hezbollah. And Iran is not gone into that dark night just yet. It still can fire. You've heard from your reporter. I'm sitting here in southern Tel Aviv. We've been under fire for much of the morning. So it's not over. We're in the middle, still in this war. Maybe we're at the end of the beginning, but we're not at the end.
For the regime change, back to that issue in Iran and the population, I'm hearing reports that the population has turned against Islam, that if this is what this religion means, we don't want any part of it. And so the numbers of believers, true believers in their version of Islam is now in the minority. The majority is either atheist or agnostic. There's a growing Christian population there. But in order to have that regime change, I think it's very hard to go against the Republican Guard, against the police force. They number close to 1 million.
Yes.
How will it, what will be the tactic in order to get that? Does the Republican Guard have to change their thinking? Does the police have to say, well, we're here to serve and protect, we're not here to kill our own citizens? What is needed in order to change it so that the majority of people in Iran can actually have their own government?
I think there would have to be defections within the IRGC or within the army. The IRGC was created originally in 1979 to basically be a watchdog over the army. The regime never trusted its own army. And perhaps elements within the army, perhaps within the leadership itself, will break off and say, okay, enough of this. We've spent $500 billion on this nuclear program. It's all now cinders. We've spent billions and billions on these terrorist organizations around the world. They're all destroyed. We've paid, immense treasure in terms of sanctions. Enough of this. And we are proud Persians. We're proud Iranians. We have a nationalism. We have a national identity. That's fine. We don't have to be jihadists. We don't have to be pan-Islamicists. And that was the only way that's going to happen, because those people, the 93 million people of Iran can't come out to the street if you've got 1 million people with machine guns who are going to shoot them down. This is precisely what happened last January 8th. So, we have to have a tremendous amount of empathy for them and hope that there will be elements within the government itself, within the regime, that will break off and say, enough is enough.
Final question. Israel has been the victim of an asymmetric war now for decades, where the other side, whether that's the PLO or Hamas or Hezbollah or the Iranians or the Syrians or ISIS, or the list just keeps going on and on and on. It's been the victim of these attacks repeatedly. And when Israel finally stands up and says, no more, we're going to retake Gaza, we're going to go into southern Lebanon, we're going to attack the source, we're going right at Iran. Why is Israel now the perpetrator of war crimes? It's just absolutely amazing to me, the propaganda war that has been going on at the same time. Israel clearly the victim of October 7th, but it's like truth has been turned on its head. I'm very worried about public opinion in Europe and in the United States. Is my concern shared in Israel? And what are the plans to say, well, we need to turn around this public perception?
Well, you're absolutely right, Gordon. And here it's not a concern. It's already sort of despair. I'll give you an example. I was on CNN 2 nights ago, and they had a 7-minute report from Lebanon that just showed the destruction that Israel was bringing to the Lebanese people, and did not mention one rocket of the hundreds of rockets that Hezbollah has fired at our people over that period. Not a single mention. So this is the kind of media we're up against, and it's basically propaganda, and it's happening in social media as well. And our enemies know it. Hamas hides behind a civilian population with the hope and the expectation that civilians will be killed, and stations like CNN, others will then use that against us and create international pressure on Israel to agree to a ceasefire, but beyond that, to delegitimize us, deny us the right to defend ourselves, and even our right to exist. So yes, this is a battle that takes place on many fields. It's in Lebanon, it's in Gaza, but it's also on your computer screen and on your television screens and in your cell phone. And in many ways, that's the decisive battle over hearts and minds, particularly young hearts and minds. And we have to invest much more heavily in this and be aware of this and understand that this is the great test. And we have to educate to the greatest degree we can, because behind so many of these accusations, Gordon, is the belief that the Jewish people are evil, that we wake up in the morning and we think nothing more than killing Palestinians or killing Lebanese or bombing an innocent Iran. And that is a prejudice that goes back not just in recent years, but goes back many centuries.
It does. It goes back millennia, and it's just if you listen to the rabbis, it happens every single generation, and it's happening in our generation. We vowed never again after World War II, and here we are, and it's here again. So just be encouraged. We stand with you no matter what, and we're with you in this battle. So thank you for standing strong and continue to be a light to the nations. We need you now more than ever. Michael Oren, thanks so much for joining with us.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.